you feel the changes? Fall is here in the Pacific Northwest. Thank you for joining us for this special coverage. I'm meteorologist Leah Pizzetti.
And I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz. And one of nature's signs that fall is officially here, it's the leaves. They're changing colors, and we've already started to see trees trading in their greens for vibrant reds, oranges, and yellows.
Love it. Seattle's senior meteorologist Rich Marriott tells us how this fall phenomenon happens and the best time of the season to see those leaves.
Well, when you think of fall, you might think of pumpkin spice drinks, maybe sweaters, but also I think most people think about fall colors. And we have really good displays of fall colors in the Pacific Northwest, though most people think of places like New England and maybe the Rockies that have really big displays, but we have them as well. This is up in the Pacific Crest Trail, up in the Cascades, and you see some pretty good colors. And we have them on both sides of the Cascades, and some places can have really large displays and sometimes just pockets of them. But what causes the fall colors to occur? Well, the green of the leaves that we have through most of the years is because of the chlorophyll, and as we start to see decreasing daylight and cooling temperatures, that chlorophyll is not produced as much and it begins to break down. There's these other chemicals in the leaf that have more colors to them, and those finally take over and dominate the color of the leaf and give us the oranges and reds and yellows that we see in the fall. And also the weather controls partially when that happens and then how intense it actually becomes. So if you take a look at the amount of daylight, it decreases hardly at all in the month of June. In fact, we gain overall for the entire month. But as we head into July, you see we're up to about 50 minutes, almost an hour and a half for the month of August. And then we peak out around the equinox. We'll see almost 2 hours change in the daylight. The plants notice that, and they start to decrease the production of the chlorophyll, and they also start to break it down more rapidly, and the net effect of both of those is to leave the other chemicals in there by themselves, and they produce all those colors. They're primarily in the reds and the yellows and the oranges from these other chemicals that are sitting in there. Now, for the brightness of the colors, what you need is warm days and cool nights. The warm days produce more of those colored chemicals, and then the cool nights keep those from moving out of the leaf, and so they gather in the leaf and gradually intensify and give us our fall colors. We're almost into the season as we head towards the middle part of September to the end of September. Really east of the Cascades and over the interior of the Pacific Northwest is where you really start to see those displays. Still just kind of spotty over on the west side of the Cascades out towards western Oregon and western Washington. As we head towards the middle part of October, it starts to spread over to the west side as we start to get past peak on the east side. And then finally, by the time we hit the end of October, we're going to be looking past peak just about everywhere. And with that, the season's pretty much over, though you may see some occasional pockets here and there where you'll still see a little bit of that color. But you have about a month to 6 weeks of color in the cities and up in the mountains, so you don't want to waste that and get out and take a look at all those beautiful shots.
As we look forward to winter, the National Weather Service has issued a La Nina watch, meaning we could be in for wetter and cooler conditions. You can see here these next couple of months tending to trend a little bit wetter. Seattle's meteorologist Adam Claybon has what we're tracking for this upcoming season.
Okay, it's that time of the year again to talk about El Nino and La Nina, and we have some latest information, and we'll let you know what that means for the upcoming fall season. First, though, we need to recap El Nino and La Nina, and you see that solid black line right there? Well, that's going to be your sea surface temperature anomaly for the equatorial Pacific. And when it gets up to that red line, that's when you get into El Nino territory, 0.5 degrees Celsius or higher as far as those sea surface temperatures. Now, the anomaly, when you get to minus 0.5 degrees Celsius or lower, well, that's when you reach La Nina territory. And that's where our line is right now. It looks like the models are suggesting we're going to be down into that territory heading on into the fall season. And so what that means for our fall forecast? Well, it means that there's a higher chance, keywords, higher chance of things being colder and wetter than normal, generally during the winter, but it holds true also for the fall season too, because we get more of this amplified jet stream that starts to pick up. And with that, well, that allows some of the cool air to come in from the north. It starts to interact with this storm track that's more overhead here across the northwest, and that could mean, well, maybe not snow in the lowlands, but definitely up across the mountains. And speaking of the snowpack, let's talk about what happens generally during a La Nina season. Again, cooler and wetter than normal is the norm. So you can see 2025, we saw from about the Washington state line down through Oregon, more of an average snowpack. That's where you see the greens. Where you're in the blues, that's where you have more of an above to well above average snowpack across the area. Now, Washington State didn't do quite as well in 2025 and definitely didn't do pretty well in 2024 because this was an El Nino season, and as you would expect, a lower snowpack here across a lot of the Northwest. Still pretty decent as you head farther south across the state of Oregon and down into California, and 2023 was really good. Check out all the blue and green showing up on here. That was a great year, while 2022, it was a La Nina year, but didn't quite hold true to form. Again, not a given, even though you do have La Nina conditions in place. And then back to 2021, you can see a lot of blue showing up, so a decent snowpack here across a lot of the Northwest. Now, just because you have a decent snowpack, it doesn't mean that heading into the summer season that your fire season is going to be on the lower end. We dried out a lot. We saw a dry spring, and also we had that heat dome, so you can see the conditions heading into September were looking pretty bad. Exceptional and extreme drought here across a lot of the Northwest. And we have drought conditions right now, but the good news for us is the Climate Prediction Center is actually leaning towards a wetter than average start to the season of fall. The first week or so looking to be wetter than normal here across more of the Northwest. While as you go deeper into the season through the months of September, October, maybe November, looks like we're going to be wetter than normal as well.
After an especially dry summer, we really need the rain this fall. The showers and then winter snow will help our drought conditions hopefully improve. Spokane's chief meteorologist Jeremy Legoo has a closer look at how the snowpack will impact the Northwest.
Fall in the Northwest is unique. While most of the country is still enjoying warmer days, a change is already taking place in the mountains around us. The air is less dense at higher elevations than it is at sea level. That means in the same weather pattern, temperatures would be cooler at higher elevations than at lower elevations, a process known as adiabatic cooling. The colder temperatures mean snow starts falling early in the season and sticks around. This becomes our snowpack, the mountain snow we accumulate every winter that lasts through spring and into the warm months of summer. That snowpack is vital to the Mountain West. It becomes our water supply through the dry summer months, filling rivers, streams, and even reservoirs, not to mention quelling fire danger until it's gone. Last winter brought a decent amount of snow to the mountains. In fact, most mountains hovered around average snowpack all winter long. By spring, that snow melted, and fast. Prolonged stretches of above normal temperatures, even by just a few degrees, have proven to melt even the most robust snowpacks at an alarming rate. So as our springs and summers get warmer, our mountain snowpack melts faster. Not only does that mean a longer fire season, but it also means less water for our reservoirs and rivers. In eastern Washington this past summer, the Spokane River actually ran dry in sections. That was from a combination of a rapidly melting snowpack early in the season and little to no rain all summer, combined with increased water use. That meant that there wasn't enough water to fill the aquifer down below and the river up above. As temperatures drop, snow in the mountains is not only a sign of the changing seasons, but a vital part of the ecosystem here in the Northwest. This winter, we want to see a lot of snow up in the mountains and cold temperatures to keep it there, not just through winter, but into summer as well. In Spokane, I'm meteorologist Jeremy Legoo.
The snowpack could play a role in next year's fire season. Right now, we're still seeing the effects from our dry summer with several wildfires sparking up throughout the PNW. And here are some of the biggest. In Washington, the Bear Gulch fire over the Olympic Peninsula, it burned over 10,000 acres. Meanwhile, in Oregon, the Emigrant fire burned more than 30,000 acres. And in Idaho, the Island Creek fire, over 14,000 acres. Portland's meteorologist Joe Ranieri has a look at when we could see these conditions improve this fall.
Now that summer is in our rearview mirror, we're going to transition into fall, and that means, of course, cooler and wet conditions. Well, it's those conditions that will help pretty much wipe out wildfire season, but that's not expected to happen for the next couple of weeks. Here we are in mid-September, and we're still looking at a pretty active wildfire season, but nothing compared to what we saw just a year ago. You remember in summer of 2024, we saw a record-breaking wildfire season, nearly 2 million acres burned in Oregon alone. This year, we're looking at more than 260,000 acres that have burned so far as of mid-September. Looking ahead, we're going to start to see some cooler weather, and with those cooler temperatures will be some rain showers. But looking ahead, I'm not expecting to see any major storms that are going to really help the crews who are working on some of those wildfire seasons. But some of the worst wildfires that we've seen so far this summer are the Rowena wildfire. That one really sticks out. That started in early June. Now, this really kicked off wildfire season in our area. That quickly grew to nearly 4,000 acres and burned nearly 60 homes. Just weeks later, the Cram Fire broke out, burning over 95,000 acres in Central Oregon near Madras. Right now, the largest fire that's burning in Oregon is the Immigrant Fire. That was lightning caused, and it's burning more than 30,000 acres near Eugene in the town of Oak Ridge. So how much longer are we expected to see wildfire season continue? Well, I'm expecting, at least throughout the valley, it's going to continue here the next couple of weeks. By the middle part of October, we'll really start to see some cooler weather move in and some rain showers and some heavy rain showers. The larger fires that I described, they'll keep burning until the later part of October, potentially into the early part of November. We'll be pretty much done with the threat of wildfire season once we start to see some of our first snow start falling up in the Oregon and Washington Cascades. Again, we're still probably a month away before we start seeing that to happen.
We've already seen some beautiful sunsets, and you've probably noticed, I know I have, they're happening earlier in the evening.
I know. So coming up, I'm going to walk you through why this happens and how much daylight we will lose this entire season.
And earlier sunsets is good news for stargazers. From northern lights to supermoons, I'm going to walk you through what we'll see in the night sky soon. Welcome back. Now that fall has arrived, our sunsets continue to fall earlier and earlier. Ashley joins us again to show us when we will see our earliest sunset and when our early sunrises will return.
As we head from the summer to fall months, do you notice that it's getting darker faster and faster? Well, it's because it is, especially in September and October, where we're closest to the equinox. And some of the fastest changes of daylight here in the Northwest especially come around the equinox. The same is true for the spring. The higher up in latitude you are, which we're pretty high up here in the Northwest, will have greater changes. And as you get closer to Canada and especially to Alaska, you will notice rapidly. Those are the areas where they will see the most significant changes. But still, we're losing a lot of daylight at a rapid pace. And to keep in mind, the sun is taking a much shorter path across the sky as Earth begins its tilt away from the sun as we get closer to the winter solstice. And what that means is there is a short amount of time for us to warm up during the day, and our days are very short. In September, just alone, the Northwest, 80 minutes to nearly 100 minutes of daylight is lost for the entire month. The same is true for October. 80 minutes to about 100 minutes for the entire month. And then as we get closer to November and then closer to the winter solstice, we're still losing a lot of daylight during November, 60 minutes to about 70 minutes. But then in December, the entire month, 10 minutes. And then once we get into January, we start to gain that daylight back. So hang tight if you're not a fan of the big dark, but we are heading into the darker months and the wetter months here, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Daylight loss during the fall. This is from September 22nd till December 20th. Seattle, Spokane, losing the most, about 3 hours and 44 minutes. And again, that's just for fall alone. Boise, 3 hours and 13 minutes, and Portland comes in second, actually, or I should say third, 3 hours and 27 minutes. So as a whole, we lose a lot of daylight up here at a rapid pace, but after we get past the winter solstice, which is December 21st, we'll start to see more daylight.
As we inch closer to the end of the year, of course, we lose that daylight each day, but we'll find a positive in that. One of the nice things is earlier sunsets means we have longer of our overnight darkness, and that makes for some really cool opportunities to see astronomical events. We've been talking about things happening in the atmosphere. Let's take it above the atmosphere. A cool fact for you, the final 3 full moons of 2025 are all supermoons. The calendar dates for those are October 6th, November 5th, and December 4th. But what is a supermoon? A supermoon happens when the moon passes just a little bit closer to Earth. That can make it seem 14% larger and 30% brighter. The moon, of course, passes on a 27-day cycle, so it's actually normal to see 3 to 4 supermoons per year, and they are always consecutive. So we get them right at the end, October, November, and December for 2025. Now, this can have impacts on a lot of things, but one of the things is higher tides. So those high tide events will be even higher. So we'll keep an eye on that as we head closer to the end of the year. Another cool thing to keep your eyes out for. Now, we have a couple meteor showers each month, a couple different meteor showers. The October meteor shower is going to peak October 22nd. This is the Orionids. About 5 to 6 meteors are possible per hour. The November meteor showers, the Leonids, this is going to be visible from early November to early December. It will actually peak the night of October 16th, though, up to 3 meteors per hour. Okay, this one is a cool one. The Geminids, this is going to be visible for the month of December. It'll peak December 12th. Check this out, 40 to 50 meteors per hour. Of course, though, that is all sky depending. So will we have sky cover? Will we be able to see the meteors? That is something you'll have to check in on day to day, but a good reminder to always look up and plan ahead.
We mentioned earlier that fall brings more rain and transforms the foliage canvas into bright, beautiful colors. But that's not all that happens. Audrielle Tackett has more on the common weather phenomenons the Pacific Northwest can expect this season.
In southwest Idaho, the shift from summer to fall is striking. Mornings turn crisp, skies brighten with fall color, and the season brings a greater chance for rain and even early snow. And while we don't get as much rain as Seattle or Portland, the Northwest as a whole sees some unique weather patterns in fall that extend far enough inland to ripple across Idaho. First, let's talk convergence zones. Take the Puget Sound convergence zone. The Olympic Mountains, located on the Olympic Peninsula, can block winds from the west to the northwest incoming from the Pacific Ocean. The winds split, wrap around the range, and collide again on the other side. Where the two airstreams collide over Puget Sound is the convergence zone. That collision forces the air upward, cooling and condensing into clouds that eventually produce precipitation. That narrow zone can bring heavy showers to one location, while a city just miles away stays dry. Southern Idaho sees a similar effect, though it's not as persistent as what happens in Seattle. After a cold front passes, winds can funnel around our mountains and meet again over the Snake River Plain. That convergence can give the atmosphere a quick lift, sparking narrow bands of rain or snow that dump on one town while leaving others nearby almost untouched. Another big fall player is the atmospheric river. One well-known example is the reoccurring Pineapple Express, in which moisture builds up in the tropical Pacific near Hawaii. Picture a fire hose of this moisture stretching from Hawaii straight into the northwest. When it hits the mainland, coastal spots can see mass amounts of rain. Naturally, the systems usually weaken by the time they reach further inland, like Idaho, upon encountering more obstacles like mountain ranges. But there's still a major reason we see quick swings in weather. Audrielle Tackett, Idaho's News Channel 7.
The holiday season is just around the corner, believe it or not. Next, we're going to tell you the weather patterns we typically see on Halloween and Thanksgiving.
Oh, and after a sunny summer, we can enjoy this fall cool down. We're going to look at some of the records we broke over the last few months in the summer across the Pacific Northwest.
This summer came in hot in the Northwest. From heat waves and record high temperatures, we had some pretty hot days and very warm nights. Seattle's average high was around 3 degrees above normal, but the low temperatures around 5 degrees above normal. We can thank the urban heat island for that. Not only that, but it was much drier than normal. Spokane had the driest summer on record. This goes from June through August. They only picked up around 1/4 of an inch of rain. The average high was around 3 degrees above normal, and the low around 5 degrees above normal. You see the trend there. It was a similar situation for our friends in Boise, around 3 degrees above normal for our highs, but much, much warmer than normal for the low temperatures. And rain totals not too bad, but still below normal. Now, Portland's highs trended a little higher than others, around 4 degrees above normal, but the lows were only about 1 degree above normal. And rain totals right around normal. The longer days, the heat domes, and very dry conditions led to several records in the Northwest for our record high temperatures, but it wasn't anything extreme. We're not talking record shattering summer conditions all around all summer long. It was still above normal. And for us cool weather lovers, guess what? The summer heat is now behind us, until next year at least.
Typically, those hot temperatures won't follow us into the fall. Cooler weather means it's almost time for the holiday season and, of course, football. Spokane's meteorologist Thomas Patrick shows us what kind of weather patterns we can expect.
It's always hot by Hoop Fest and cold by Halloween. And that makes sense. That's late June and late October, respectively. But that could be the case anywhere across the Pacific Northwest, especially in the fall season where we have a very drastic drop in temperatures, really from the beginning to the end of the season as a whole. This is basically what the average temperature line looks like for any Pacific Northwest city. A very steep drop through the months of October, November, and December, bottoming out by mid-December and into the first week of January. We have very cold early winters for us. So that means around the holiday season, we can experience oftentimes some of the coldest weather of the entire year. Here's a look at some of the average high temperatures for Thanksgiving and Christmas, respectively, as we go from about 40 to 50 degrees across the eastern and western side of Washington, down to 33, the average high in Spokane. These numbers you see here are the lowest average highs of the entire year for the last week of December. But it is a pretty big difference from a balmy mid-40s in Seattle and Portland to that near freezing mark in Spokane. And that, of course, makes the biggest difference determining whether we get a white Christmas or not. Already looking ahead, but because the low temperatures don't often get to 32 degrees, the chances for a white Christmas for Seattle and Portland on the west side of the Cascades is extremely low, just 3 to 4%, but a bit better in Spokane, almost 50-50. But if you are determined to see a white Christmas, there's an easy solution. You can always go to the mountains.
That will do it for this special coverage of fall in the Pacific Northwest. We thank you so much for joining us. I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz.
And I'm meteorologist Leah Passetti. Thanks for being with us. But don't forget, you can join us every morning at 10 a.m. where we take you across the West Coast tracking weather conditions. You can watch Weather Out West on King 5 Plus, download on your TV, and watch for free.